Okay, well this is going to pee a lot of people off. Let's begin. The article says that the state pension age may have to rise to, wait for it, 70 years old as the government grapples with increasing pressure on public finances. And that is according to a bombshell report which has analysed the challenges for the UK pension system. The report from the Institute of Financial Studies, the IFS, warned millions of people are set to face a delayed retirement. Those in their 30s and 40s are being encouraged to brace for a state pension age as high as 70. Such a change, though, would mean Britons working 4 years longer than they perhaps anticipated. The IFS cited that Britain's ageing population as a reason why the government could be forced to hike the state pension age. The report said, as an illustration of the extent to which the population is ageing, it's my very professional voice, in 2050, a state pension age as high as 70 would be required to keep the share of adults aged over the state pension age at the current rate of just 24%, which apparently is set to skyrocket in the coming years. Forecasts predict the figure rising to 31% by 2050 and 34% by 2070, which is of course likely to put an increased pressure on the public purse unless action is taken to balance the books. Well, can you just imagine what a kick in the gonads that would be if, let's say for example, you were working all your life and about 6 months or maybe even a year before you were due to retire, you get a letter through the post marked pension on it or something like that, and you think, oh, I wonder what it's going to be, how much am I going to get or whatever, and you then open it just to find out that you then have to work another few years longer before you're allowed to sit back and relax and watch a bit of telly and all those other things that pensioners do. I'm guessing not many people would like that, would they? Including me. Although, to be honest, it is a little bit of time before I retire. Apparently, I've got to be 68 for all you boys and girls out there. And yes, okay, while 70 is only 2 more years away from 68, sadly, not everyone reaches that age, do they? I mean, what do they want us to do? Work every day until we drop down dead or something like that? It's just absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? I know, obviously, that people are living longer, but at the same time, I don't think we should all be penalised for that, should we? And who knows, maybe, just maybe, they might not actually be satisfied with that 24% figure in the first place. Maybe they actually want to reduce it down to 20%, in which case, what age would the state pension be then? Netflix has revealed a huge change to its cheaper subscription plan, and it could save you money. Yay! The streaming giant's ad-supported option has just become a whole lot more worthwhile, apparently. At launch, the new $4.99 tier plan was restricted to one screen at a time and would only play at 720p. But the Stranger Things maker, shameless plug for you there, is upgrading both of those for free. Firstly, the company has revealed that the video quality will now be boosted to 1080p, and better still, you'll now be able to use it on 2 screens at once instead of 1. Users in Canada and Spain will be the first to benefit, and the UK and US will follow on later this month. Well, finally, at last, one company seems to realise that there is a cost of living crisis going on and is actually giving its lower plan customers the benefits of a higher plan. So technically reducing the price for a lot of people, because let's face it, I, for example, who am on the middle plan at the moment, might go down to the bottom plan because I can't really think what else is going to be different. I mean, yes, okay, I'm going to have to watch ads, but if I'm getting the same video quality and the same number of screens, then what are the differences? Oh, I know. Apparently on the lower plan, there are a couple of shows which aren't included. But to be honest, I don't know if that's really worth paying the extra money for, especially as it's more than double the price of the lower plan. And to be honest, the moths in my wallet would be very upset if I did something like that. But anyway, hopefully someone like the BBC might actually take more notice of this, because it just goes to show, though, that how profitable that ad-supported plan must be for Netflix. Because it's kind of looking like they actually prefer people to be on that plan if they're willing to give them the benefits, doesn't it? Because therefore there'll be more eyes on the adverts and presumably more companies willing to advertise on their service. Which kind of makes me question if one day Netflix will offer something like a free ad-supported plan or something like that. I mean, admittedly that is a really long shot, but you never know, it might happen. Especially if they think they can get more and more eyeballs on those ads. And certain companies out there, such as, I don't know, YouTube, do that already, don't they? Which just leaves, let's face it, the BBC. Hopefully, this will actually show the BBC that they can make money from ads. If a massive streaming giant is willing to have a load of its customers move from the higher priced plan to the lower priced plan, and they'll end up making money from those ads. But then again, of course, it's the BBC, so they're more than likely just be happy enough just to sit there and get paid for basically doing nothing, in my opinion, until they're actually forced to get rid of their stupid and outdated TV licence. Because let's face it, that's what it really is nowadays, isn't it? Or maybe actually this is to soften the blow of the rumoured password share and crackdown, which apparently is due to come into force sometime soon. A taxi driver has been hit with a parking fine while delivering emergency bloods to a hospital, and his appeal has been rejected. Gary, who didn't want his surname published, works part-time for a taxi firm which regularly works with the North West Ambulance Service to help deliver bloods and x-rays to the Manchester Royal Infirmary. He attended the MRI department on April the 8th to deliver bloods, but minutes later he returned to his taxi to find a fixed penalty notice on his windscreen, despite a sign on his dashboard saying who he works for and why he was there. Gary from Liverpool said, "The taxi firm I work for has a contract with the NHS, so we can deliver bloods, x-rays and respond to 111 calls, and also take patients to dialysis meetings. I got a call to take some emergency transplant bloods from the pathology lab at Winston Hospital in Prescott to MRI. I parked in an ambulance bay next to the ambulance, put a sign in the window and went into the hospital. I dropped the bloods off and must have been, about 10 minutes before I came back to see a sticker on my windscreen from Parking Eye." Gary approached the Parking Eye worker who told him he'd parked in a blue badge spot but his sign wasn't visible. However, his ticket stated he'd parked in a designated emergency area and his sign would be visible in his window if they checked CCTV. Gary appealed the fine, but it was rejected on Tuesday. He was told he had 14 days to pay £35 before the cost rose to £70, so his wife paid the fine on Wednesday. He added, "I've never had anything like this before. I'm delivering blood. I'm working. We've got people's records and blood. I don't think we should be parking and paying display spaces to transport them, especially when it's an emergency." Parking Eye, though, said Gary parked in a no parking zone, which included patient transport drivers. Now, okay, yes, whilst he is a taxi driver and therefore not an emergency worker, his taxi firm does strangely have a contract with the NHS to do those things for the NHS. So presumably, of course, they are okay with him doing that. And as they're bloods and need to get to hospital as soon as possible, if they're emergency bloods, then surely he would be allowed to park in an emergency space. I mean, would they rather have him searching around the car park for about 10 or 15 minutes trying to find a space, because let's face it, spaces in hospital car parks can sometimes be quite hard to find, can't they? Before going upstairs and saying, "Here you go," just to have the risk of the patient falling severely ill in the meantime? Or would they rather him park straight outside the hospital, run in, give the people the bloods, and then go off again? I mean, let's face it, it's not exactly rocket science, is it? But strangely, some sort of presumably jobs where a parking enforcement officer just doesn't seem to understand that. You would have thought, though, that on appeal, that would have come to light, but presumably it didn't. Now, that, of course, they probably try to think of their targets or either money from any fines rolling into them. It's just absolutely disgraceful and may make people like Gary think twice before actually doing something like that again, when his service might actually really be needed, especially if the NHS needs contractors like him to do those sort of jobs, rather than getting an ambulance driver to pick up their blood or whatever themselves. And I totally agree that Gary should not have to pay to park if he's doing a job which is an emergency and could potentially be saving someone's life. And as long as he isn't causing obstruction for ambulances or patients or whatever, then I really don't see what the problem is with him parking as close as he possibly can to get the blood there as soon as he can. And yes, obviously I'm not trying to say that people can park wherever they want to and just do whatever regardless of the rules, but clearly in this situation an allowance I think should have been made, especially if he stuck a sign up in his window, presumably from the hospital or whoever, saying he's there in an emergency. But it just seems to be the case now, doesn't it, that many more companies just seem to be thinking of their bank balance rather than using their intelligence. Especially Sadiq Khan, in my opinion, with what he's done in this video, because he seems to come up with, well, say, alternative way of charging people to use the roads, and it's not a good one and will pee a lot of people off, including me. Anyway, subscribe for more and I'll see you in the next one.